Look at your phone. No, seriously, look at it. Now look at your coffee maker, and your car, and that weird singing fish your aunt gave you for Christmas. What do they all have in common? Besides being things you'd probably rather not lose, they all have tiny microscopic brains inside them. These are microchips or semiconductors, and they are, quite literally, everywhere. They are the unsung, utterly essential, and frankly ridiculously complicated little pieces of silicon that make the modern world go round. Without them, your smartphone would just be a very expensive paperweight, your car would be a large metal lawn ornament, and your life would grind to a screeching, inconvenient halt. Think of it this way, a microchip is like the conductor of an orchestra. It tells every other part of a device what to do, when to do it, and how fast. From the simple act of turning on your TV to the incredibly complex calculations needed for a satellite to stay in orbit, a chip is in charge. It's the reason your laptop can stream a cat video from a server halfway across the world in milliseconds. It's the magic that lets your smartwatch track your heart rate, your steps, and your questionable sleep schedule. These things aren't just gadgets. They are the fundamental building blocks of our economy, our communication, and even our entertainment. They are, for better or worse, the invisible architects of our daily existence. Now you might think, okay, they're important, so what? Well, here's the kicker. Making these things is hard. Incredibly mind-bogglingly hard. It involves multi-billion-dollar factories, clean rooms cleaner than a surgeon's operating theater, and technology so precise it feels like science fiction. Because of this complexity, only a few places in the world can actually do it well. This creates a massive global supply chain, a delicate domino line of countries all relying on each other. And when someone starts pushing those dominoes over, say by starting a massive trade war, things get very, very messy. Suddenly, the tiny brain in your toaster becomes a pawn in a global chess match. And that brings us to the heart of the matter. For decades, this intricate dance of chip making happened quietly in the background, but now it's front-page news. Two of the world's biggest superpowers, the United States and China, are locked in a ferocious battle for control over these tiny brains. They both want to be the one who designs, builds, and sells the most advanced chips. Why? Because whoever controls the chips controls the future. They control artificial intelligence, military technology, and the next generation of everything. This isn't just a trade dispute, it's a Cold War fought with silicon, and the entire world is feeling the tremors. So you have the United States, the long-reigning champion of tech innovation, then you have China, the challenger rising with astonishing speed. When you think of the global chip industry, your mind probably jumps to Taiwan, home of the giant TSMC, or maybe South Korea with Samsung, but Malaysia? For most people, Malaysia brings to mind beautiful beaches, incredible food, and maybe those towers in Kuala Lumpur. But here's the secret. Malaysia is an absolute powerhouse in a crucial and often overlooked part of the semiconductor supply chain. It's the world's capital for chip assembly, testing, packaging. Let me break that down. Designing a chip is like writing the blueprint for a skyscraper. Fabricating it, turning that design into actual silicon wafers, is like manufacturing all the steel beams and glass panels. But all those parts still need to be put together. That's where Malaysia comes in. They take the finished chips from the foundries, test them to make sure they work, cut them from the silicon wafer, and then enclose them in a protective casing. The little black plastic rectangle you actually see on a circuit board. This back-end process is absolutely vital. A faulty package can render a multi-million-dollar chip completely useless. And Malaysia isn't just a minor player here, it's a giant. It handles an estimated 13% of the entire world's chip packaging, assembly, and testing. Think about that for a second. More than 1 out of every 10 chips that goes into a phone, a car, or a computer somewhere on this planet passes through Malaysia. So how did Malaysia become this chip finishing titan? Well, it definitely didn't happen overnight. The story begins in the 1970s, long before the chip war. Malaysia wanted to move beyond rubber tin. It needed a new engine for growth. The government aimed to turn Penang into an electronics hub. They offered tax breaks, built industrial parks, rolled out the red carpet for foreign investors. It was a bold gamble that paid off, thanks to the 8 Samurai. The 8 Samurai were 8 multinational electronics pioneers. Intel, AMD, Motorola set up their first assembly plants in Penang in 1972. They sought low labor costs, a stable government, and English-speaking workforce. Malaysia hit those marks. That initial wave created the Silicon Valley of the East. Companies trained a local workforce, which attracted more companies, building a deep talent pool. This long history is Malaysia's biggest asset. it has a 50-year head start. With the US-China rivalry reaching, well, a fever pitch, Malaysia now finds itself in an enviable, if slightly awkward position, being courted by both sides. It's kind of like being the neutral friend who suddenly has the two most popular kids in school fighting to sit with them at lunch. The United States and its allies see Malaysia as a key part of their friend-shoring strategy. That means moving critical parts of the supply chain to friendly, politically stable countries to reduce dependence on China. They are actively encouraging their semiconductor giants to expand operations in Malaysia, and the companies are listening. American chipmaker Intel recently announced a massive $7 billion investment to expand its advanced packaging facility in Penang. Another US firm, Micron Technology, is also pouring money into the country. German giant Infineon Technologies is building the world's largest silicon carbide power fab in Kedah. These aren't small bets, they're huge long-term commitments that really show a deep confidence in Malaysia's role in the future of the semiconductor industry. Meanwhile, China is playing a very different but equally aggressive game. Blocked from accessing high-end American technology, Chinese companies are also flocking to Malaysia. They're setting up new assembly and testing facilities to serve their own domestic market and international customers. This move lets them sidestep some of the US restrictions and keep their supply chains running. This puts Malaysia in a pretty delicate balancing act. On one hand, it's a major non-NATO ally of the United States and has deep historic ties with American and European firms. On the other hand, China is its largest trading partner and a massive source of investment. Malaysia's government has been very clear, it wants to remain neutral. So, what does all this high-level geopolitical maneuvering actually mean for regular people? In Malaysia, the impact is immense and honestly pretty immediate. This flood of new investment from both the US and China is creating a boom in high-skilled, high-paying jobs. Engineers, technicians, R&D specialists. This is a massive opportunity for the Malaysian workforce. Career paths that are lucrative and cutting-edge. It's driving up wages. It's creating demand for better science and engineering education. However, this boom also comes with its own set of challenges. A sudden surge in demand for talent is creating a labor shortage. Companies are fiercely competing for a limited pool of experienced engineers, sometimes even poaching them from one another. That pressure is pushing Malaysia's education system to produce more graduates with the right skills. There are also concerns about infrastructure. Massive new factories need huge amounts of reliable electricity, clean water, efficient logistics. The Malaysian government is racing to upgrade infrastructure to keep up. For companies, this global reshuffling is a logistical nightmare. A company like Apple has to reevaluate its entire supply chain. That complexity adds costs. And guess who ultimately pays for that? You do. The chip war and supply chain shifts could push prices up for smartphones, laptops, cars, washing machines. The broader impact on workers is a mixed bag. The chip war is redrawing the global map of labor, creating winners and losers in a complex and unpredictable new world. As we stand here in late 2025, the dust from this technological clash is far from settled. The future trajectory of this US-China chip war, and Malaysia's role within it, could unfold in several ways. One possible outcome is a continued and maybe even intensified bifurcation of the tech world, one led by the US and its allies, another centered around China. In this scenario, global standards would diverge, and technology would become increasingly fragmented. Your phone might work in one part of the world but not another. It would be a less efficient, more expensive, and more complicated world for everyone. In this fractured future, Malaysia's position as a neutral middle ground becomes even more critical, but also more perilous. It could continue to thrive by serving both ecosystems, acting as a bridge between the two technology blocks. However, the pressure to choose a side would undoubtedly intensify. The US might impose stricter rules on what technology can be shared or handled in a country that also does business with Chinese tech firms. Maintaining this delicate neutrality will require masterful diplomacy from the Malaysian government, as one misstep could alienate a crucial partner. Another possibility is a form of détente, a cooling of tensions. The sheer cost and inefficiency of running parallel supply chains might lead both the US and China to find a new, more stable equilibrium. They might not be friends, but they could agree on certain rules of the road to prevent mutual economic destruction. In this world, the global supply chain might not snap back to the way it was before, but it could become less chaotic. Ultimately, the one thing that is certain is that the world has woken up to the strategic importance of semiconductors. The era of taking these tiny brains for granted is over. For Malaysia, this newfound prominence is a golden opportunity to solidify its position as an indispensable node in the global tech network, moving further up the value chain into design R&D. For the rest of us, it's a stark reminder that the invisible components powering our modern lives are at the heart of a global power struggle. The battle for the future is being fought on a piece of silicon smaller than your fingernail, and the whole world is holding its breath to see who wins.